Hello, welcome to Banhammer Games. My name is Cole, and today, or this is also Fan Friday. Uh, I'm 2 weeks behind, I think. Um, I'm definitely not going to be able to catch up on the videos that I missed. Maybe I'm more than 2 weeks. I'm not sure. Um, I'm sorry. I work retail, and it was Christmas the last couple weeks, basically. So I've been very busy and very tired. So never really got around to recording another Fan Friday. But this week I wanted to do kind of like my history of trading card games. What I used to play, what decks I used to play in whatever games that those used to be, and then games that I'm currently looking forward to in 2023. Um, and there's way more than I'd like. So we'll just jump into it. First things first. My history with card games, trading card games. I had a cousin who gave me a bunch of their old Pokemon cards, like a bunch of commons and stuff. Didn't really matter. So I had a lot of like base set. Let's see. Gold and silver would have been out by then. So I would have had a lot of base set to a lot of the Neo era. And maybe a little bit of Ruby and Sapphire, but not a whole lot of that. Um, yeah, because that was coming out when I was really into Pokemon. Um, but I just collected and I never really played. I tried to learn to play. I knew kind of how to play, and I tried to build a deck with a bunch of random cards and stuff. And back then, a lot of the resources weren't very good on teaching how to like to properly deck build. So I made a bunch of stinkers. um, and I had the TCG, the Pokemon trading card game, Game Boy Color game. Played that a lot. It was a ton of fun. And then, whew, and then I discovered Yu-Gi-Oh. I do not remember how I discovered Yu-Gi-Oh. Besides what catching it on TV. I don't remember. Um, I guess maybe I got like hand-me-down cards, probably from the same cousin. I think probably from people on like the buses and whatnot. Um, but yeah, I that was good God, like in elementary school. So, ooh, 20, almost 20 years ago. And the first cards that I ever bought, I bought an original dual disc. It was broken at Toys R Us. Like the display that the numbers would come up was cracked, but everything still worked fine. All the lights and sounds and whatnot worked. The mechanic that it would like come around, swing around, that all worked. So I bought that, and I bought a special edition of whatever set had Gear Golem on it. So it was like the first one that Elemental Heroes were introduced. Um, I thought it was like a starter deck. It was not. So I was a little disappointed. However, it had a lot of cool cards. I had opened quite a few Elemental Heroes, and I am one of those basic people where Elemental Heroes were one of my all time, or still one of my all time favorite archetypes, just in general. Um, Specifically, I really love the Neos stuff, so the Neospatians, and I'm actually working on. I bought the cards for the deck, and we're building it right now, and it's really cool. It's really cool. I'm building it. I probably am never gonna play with it, but this is Yu-Gi-Oh, so the cards like are gonna kind of stay the same. Like look, Blazeman and Shadow Mist, Stratos. I finally get to legally play with Stratos. I can't wait for that. Um, yeah, look at that sweet Neos art. Gorgeous. Yeah, I'm looking forward to mm, at the least doing test hands with this deck, and then if I feel like grinding out, or I don't know, maybe buying Master Duel, so like stuff in Master Duel, maybe just to play against the computers in Master Duel, probably. I also really like Dark Worlds, which I bought recently. I bought 3 of the Dark World structure decks, and I put them together into that deck. So that's cool. I also really like Luna Lights because fusion's my favorite like type of summoning, and I think they make a really cool boss monster, and I like how they reuse pieces and like fusion materials and polymerization back and forth. I think that's really cool. Things you can do with that. Frightfurs are also really cool. I have a giant list in my Google Keeps or Keep or whatever, my Google Notes basically, that of all the archetypes that I want to collect because I really like Yu-Gi-Oh's architect design. I think that those are really cool. They all are pretty distinct. And I like how they're all different, you know. So like Shiranui's, I have a Shiranui deck. Shiranui's are super freaking cool. Ooh. It's like what if Bleach was in Yu-Gi-Oh kind of, but they're all fire based. So that's really cool. I like that a lot. Um, yeah, Frightfurs, windups were cool. Watts were cool. Like there's just so many, way too way too many, way too many to go through, and I kind of just want to start collecting the cards from the archetypes that I really like, and so I've kind of begun that. It's in my collection over there. I've started that. Um, but yeah, I tried to recently get back into Yu-Gi-Oh, but there's way too much going on. There's way too much going on. I've played Yu-Gi-Oh, at least digitally, in almost every iteration, except for not a lot of pendulums and not a lot of links. Um, but I have played them. I understand the mechanics and all that stuff. And there's even like a lot of archetypes using those mechanics that I like a lot. Like pendulum magicians, I think look really cool. My Lunalights use pendulums. Um, you know, stuff like that. Let's see. Links are also I love the idea of links. I love the idea of links. I think they're really cool. They make the positions on the field matter. But I think they got too strong. Yeah, that's probably the best way I can think of it. Yeah, like they're just in general, the power level and a lot of links were way too strong. And then whatever the master rule was, where you had to, the only way to special summon anything out of the extra deck was if it had to be to an area that the link monster that you had pointed to, and that just felt like a really big flaw. But I played Yu-Gi-Oh on and off. I still keep up and pay attention because I want to know what archetypes I want to collect. Basically, there's these new ones coming out. It might be in the next set or something like that. I think they're called the Rescue Aces, and they're really cool, like firefighting guys, and oh, the art's super good. Ooh, they look really good. Anyway, so that's my history with Yu-Gi-Oh. And from Yu-Gi-Oh, I went to Card Fight Vanguard. I think I'm pretty sure I went to Card Fight Vanguard, and um, with Vanguard, I started with Gold Paladins, and I kind of just went from there. Gold Paladins were pretty easy. I bought like a Gold Paladin trial deck, the one with Garmor in it. Um, got destroyed constantly. Upgraded to the Bluish Flames version of Gold Paladins. Got destroyed still, but I put up more of a fight this time, and my turns took forever. And as Bluish Flame players would know, or anyone who played against Bluish Flame players would know, those turns took forever. And from there, that's when Night Rose was. That's when Night Rose was revealed, and I had already kind of like been going towards the Grand Blue Way in with Vanguard, the because my one of my favorite mechanics in any card game is anything that plays with the discard or the graveyard or whatever. So learning that Grand Blue did that and seeing the cool different Grand Blue cards, just the cards and not like what they did, but like the arts and stuff. I started to really like Grand Blue, and then Night Rose came with her glorious sword, bright neon green, like ghoul sword, and all like the purple and the neon blue and the green vapors and stuff around her. I thought was super super cool, and and then she seemed really good, and so I started to build her, and that was one of my favorite decks ever because the way that for the rest of what G era ended up being, all the support that she got was really cool, and the way that all the different interactions were really cool. It turned into a multi-attacking deck, so a pretty aggro deck, but one that had a lot of ways to like recur its resources and reuse them over and over again. I loved a lot. I loved how flexible that deck was. It was a ton of fun. Coincidentally, V era, not V era, oof, G era was my favorite Vanguard era, which anyone who knows me from Drive Check would know that I really love Night Rose and I love Grand Blue and I love G era. So much so that I have a Grand Blue tattoo. Um, Also, for those who didn't know, I no longer play Vanguard, at least not as heavily as I used to. Still have all of my V era Grand Blue decks. I have a premium Grand Blue deck, and I don't play in the standard version. I don't play what Grand Blue became, which would be Stoicheia. I tried to with Zorga. I tried to make Zorga work. I really did, but like, I'm not gonna get into how much I really disliked some of the design decisions that they chose for standard, or really for Vanguard in general, which is why I quit playing it. Um, Definitely didn't like their design choices or their business choices, Bushiroad's business choices. So I kind of stepped away from playing Vanguard. I still keep up with it, and like I said, I have a standard deck, which is Bear Magnus, which that deck is that deck is awesome. I love Bear Magnus. But yeah, I don't really play Vanguard anymore. But I have cards for it. I've also, while I was playing Vanguard, I was trying to play Light Seekers, which was a pretty cool like little. It was a small company who tried to make their own franchise based off of this game. Um, and I really really liked it. I still think it's a great concept. But basically, it was kind of trying to turn a video game into a card game, essentially, with how it used cards, and basically effects were on timers, and the timers you can tell what it was because the card like turned around, like rotated, and depending on what corner was up the top left, I believe, it did whatever that card referenced, and it played like the cards that you played off of each other. It was a one-on-one, like you chose a character and your opponent chose a character, and you were like that character, and then you're using different attacks and defenses and stuff back and forth. And I really liked how that played. The problem with that game, and I think, well, there's a couple problems, but the biggest one is it just translated better to a digital game than it did a physical game. But by the time the digital game like really came out, and they really got like all the playtesting in and all that stuff that they needed, they would change some of the physic or the digital cards, change those effects fairly frequently. But you still had paper versions of the cards, and you just had to know what the errata did, and it became a lot to keep up with. Almost every week, there was a new errata. Basically, some cards just flat out didn't work like how they used to, or how they did in paper, and it got really confusing. And I think that's kind of what killed the game, unfortunately, because I loved it a lot. But yeah. Oh, I totally forgot the whole reason. literally the whole reason I wanted to make this video is to talk about Chaotic. Um, I love Chaotic. Chaotic is one of my top, probably my top three card games, I would say. But I didn't play it a lot. That's the unfortunate part. I wish I played it more. Um, but I tried to get friends to play it. I just loved the world. I loved the show so much. I loved the lore. I loved the art of the cards. Just like everything encompassing Chaotic, I loved. But looking back on it now, the gameplay is a little fiddly is the best way that I can describe it. So you had to keep track of a lot of different things, and really the only way to do that was to have a section of your playmat, which came with like the starter decks and whatnot, that was dedicated to like tracking your stats. So like you had energy, which is like your health. Each creature had a certain amount of that. Each creature also had a certain amount of music counters, and music counters were like counters that you would use in order to play spells, basically. Uh, Music is music and magic put together. Music. Um, and you would remove those counters in order to play the music cards. So you had to keep track of energy, music counters, and then each creature had four discipline stats: courage, wisdom, power, and speed, I believe. And each one of those stats would fluctuate depending on like abilities, attacks, musics, all kinds of stuff. Battle gear, for instance, that would also be a thing. So you'd also have to keep track of, the stats would go up and down, up and down. Also, a gimmick of the show and the game that they tried to combine was the stats varied. So there was a threshold that each creature, like a threshold range that each creature could have stats randomly assigned. But no two creatures no two creatures, like if you had two different Maxor cards, right? He's kind of like the Pikachu of Chaotic. If you have two different Maxor cards, one could have a really high courage, and then the other could have a really low courage. And there's some that could be like in the middle or whatever. Um, and it was flavorful for the show because each creature card represented you, the player, scanning that creature, and depending on what that creature's how they were doing in Param, which is like the world of Chaotic, would be what their stats would be for that day. I want to dive a lot further into Chaotic in the future because I have a lot to say about Chaotic. A lot to say. I'm not going to spoil it all here, but basically, I played Chaotic. I loved Chaotic. I have a lot of Chaotic cards. I don't have a. I have a fair amount of good ones, but anyway, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Um, there's also a pretty big community for Chaotic right now. There's a whole Discord for it. You can play Chaotic online with, I think, Chaotic Recode, I think is what it is. .com, and then there's also like a Discord that's attached to it, etc., etc. But the decks that I really like focused on were Danians. I like Danians a lot, mostly because I had a lot of Danians, so I made a lot of Danian decks. But two of my favorite creatures are Danians, so that's pretty nice actually. And then Mepedians, I thought Mepedians were really cool. I loved Overworlders as well. Marillions, I hated them, but I also liked them a lot too. So, um, so yeah, played Chaotic, Light Seekers, and kind of from there, I've started to play as many different games as I can. I was really interested in the Battle Spirits. I never played Battle Spirits. I have cards for it. I kind of like really try to dive into Battle Spirits, but Battle Spirits is actually coming out in English next year. So that's one that I'm really looking forward to playing. The Naruto trading card game I thought was pretty cool. I learned how to play at one point. I have since forgotten. how to play at one point. I've never actually played a game of it though. So, but I had cards for that. Let's see. What else? Oh, Buddy Fight, Future Card Buddy Fight. I had a deck. I have multiple for that still. I thought that game was super cool. I loved how every archetype was a new way to experience the game, which it seems like a really obvious thing. Like obviously you want different archetypes to be new ways to experience the game, but the way that Buddy Fight did archetypes were like they have a simple, very very simple rule set for that game, but all the spice comes from the archetypes that they had. So, like for example, my all-time favorite Buddy Fight deck is a deck called Cosmo Man, and he's essentially Ultraman. If you've realized a theme, Neos is basically like Elemental Hero Neos is Ultraman. Cosmo Man is also Ultraman. I like Ultraman. Ultraman's really cool. So anytime I can kind of see a deck like that, I gravitate towards it. But the way that Cosmo Man worked is he wanted to have a lot of big, like one big creature, one big monster on the board, basically, and it like defends itself, defends me, the player who plays it, defends them. He also can be really big and stompy and attack for a lot and attack multiple times. So it's kind of like his thing. Whereas my dangerous vegetables, I love the juxtaposition of this really cool like anime Ultraman like tokusatsu guy in a suit, guy doing dynamic poses with like a lot of special effects and whatnot, destroying buildings, and then you got these chibi ridiculous looking vegetables with army like weapons like helmets and rocket launchers and stuff like that. Just the dichotomy of the juxtaposition of them is really fun and really cute. But dangerous vegetables like to have a lot of vegetables and then they combine into a curry boat. So they're trying to make curry, and like the curry boat are like weapons, like vehicles of war. So like there's tanks. I think one is supposed to be like a boat, but like they're really funny. And then I had another deck that wanted to basically its goal was to deal the opponent 666 points of damage basically. So it did a lot of things to kind of to set up for that, and that's very hard to defend. But it was all based off of demons and stuff, so it kind of makes sense. But like, there's a lot of different archetypes that do very different things, and I really like that. That was a Bushiroad game. I think that Bushiroad game was a very good indicator of how a game could fall due to power creep. It was power creep and prices of that game because of power creep, really. So that game died to power creep. Um, so yeah, there's that. Um, I've played Weiss Wars as a game. I think it's fine. It can be fun. But you're playing Weiss Schwartz for different reasons, and we'll just leave it at that. I've only built one deck. I like actually built one Weiss Schwartz deck, and that was a Fairy Tale one, and it was Gray and Juvia, because at the time, 6 or 7 years ago, I really liked Fairy Tale, and I was getting into other card games at the time of Vanguard, and I was like, oh, I like these characters. Let me build a deck with them. Um, so yeah, there's that. Let's see what else. I have a lot of like starter decks for Weiss Wars just because occasionally I see a property that I like Adventure Time. It was the first English exclusive one, so I snagged that. I have a Star Wars, which is the Japanese one for the Force Awakens. I snagged that. I have a couple of Sword Art Online ones because back in the day I did like Sword Art Online. Um, I have others. just I pick up if there's a property and I see and I like it, I used to pick them up. Um, but I don't really do that anymore. Let's see. I tried Digimon at the time when it first came out. Like I'm talking about the most recent Bandai one, the one that's currently going on. I was an early adopter. The first, I pre-ordered a couple boxes, and all the starter decks, etc. And I built and I traded for a Lilithmon deck because it was purple, and purple like stealing stuff with the discard. I also really liked the way that she worked, and I think I also teched in Beelzemon. I'm really bad with Digimon. That was not my thing. I watched it and I enjoyed it, but I don't know like all the things for it. But anyway, um, I didn't really like how that gameplay played. Um, I thought I did, but a couple games I wasn't a fan of it. But I am looking to get into it again in 2023, but in June. Because there's a Digimon, Ravemon, or Ravemon. I don't know. I'm not exactly sure, but in one of like one of the small sets that apparently comes out in English in June of 2023, even though it just came out in Japan in December of 2022. Um, but yeah, that's coming out, and I really like those decks, or that deck, because it kind of fixes a lot of the problems that I had with Digimon originally. Um, because like back then, it felt like I spent all this time building up this Digimon, this big Digimon, and then again, it kind of gets destroyed super easily. Um, but that's not really the case with this guy, because this deck likes to be destroyed outside of battle, and it's purple as well, and I really like purple, so it's kind of like hitting all the boxes for me, and like it summons itself, adds more option cards, etc., etc. Like it cheats a lot more than just straight up playing the card, which I really like. So I'm looking forward to that. I'm also looking forward to Elestrals, which is a new game. Which actually, I did record a Fan Friday on this game talking about it a little bit, but I didn't want to release it because I didn't know a lot about the game. Like, I didn't feel comfortable talking about the game, even though I backed it on Kickstarter. I've played one game of it, didn't play it all the way through, but I got like enough to get the gist of it, and enough to get me interested in the game. But I haven't played enough to feel comfortable like exactly talking about it. But I'll definitely have a video of me opening the stuff. I got one booster box and one of all 5 starter decks. So there's enough content there to at least do a couple different videos. So we'll do that for sure, and I'll talk about it because hopefully by that time I'll be more versed in it. I could print out proxies of decks and stuff and play with against myself or other friends, but just not a whole lot of free time right now. So there's that. Let's see what else. Flesh and Blood. I played Flesh and Blood a lot, or not a lot, but a fair amount. I really like that game. I like how it plays. I like the characters. The card design is really cool. I like the resource system. So you get usually 4 cards in your hand, and some cards you use the cards in your hand to pay to play other cards in your hand. So basically, you kind of pitch them in order to pay the cost to play other cards. And I really like that resource system. So I plan on using that in a future project. But that game is cool. But I stopped playing it mostly because Andy stopped playing it, and Andy, if you know anyone or know me from Banhammer, like the podcast that we had, which was Captain's Call. When it was a little bit, I think we did like one or two episodes. We also did Perfect Guard podcast, which we talked about. We talked about Flesh and Blood on that too. But he quit playing, so I kind of quit playing. Um, I could go to Flesh and Blood nights, but the game was kind of like ridiculously expensive. Like there's some cards that cost $100 and they just prevented you from losing 2 damage or whatever, and I didn't like that. Um, I also didn't like how some of the balance in that game was a little not great. Like Prism was just way too strong, and I didn't like their way of balancing. So instead of like banning cards, which they did occasionally, if they're just way too strong, they they let some heroes run around for far too long. Um, Starvo shouldn't have existed. Starvo was a card that within I think 2 or 3 months after being released ended up getting the maximum amount of points to retire it. So essentially it got like soft banned in like 2 months, maybe less. Um, that was not a fun time to play. That was kind of the last bit that I played. Um, because like, that card was just ridiculous. Let's see. Good God, I'm drawing blanks. I have a lot of card games. I've played a lot. I like a lot. Maybe I'll have a follow up. One Piece. Yeah, One Piece. I haven't played an IRL game of that, but I'm very interested. I really like that. For those of you who don't know, I'm an aspiring game designer, and the Dawn system was in One Piece was basically something that I was kind of working on for the longest time. But I think that they just did it better. Um, so I kind of really want to play around with that more. So I'm pretty excited for that. I don't know. I haven't really been looking into the decks to build. Um, so I have no idea what I'm doing with that. I think I was talking to my buddy Simon the other day, um, who also loves card games, especially old dead card games. But he was of the opinion where he doesn't want to jump into a brand new game. He kind of wants to sit back and see the game kind of develop and see the people, the players, figure things out and seeing if the game lasts and the price is coming down because they get more product out, etc., etc. I kind of think that's the way to go, especially with a Bandai game. Like as much as I want to play Battle Spirits coming out soon, and I want to be an early adopter and want to play that ASAP. I think the strat is to just kind of like let everything play out for a little bit, and then jump into it. After dust settles, and because I don't really want to buy random product like sealed product anymore and open that. I might do it occasionally for a few different things. But just in general, I don't want to do that. I'd rather buy singles, save time, save money buying singles. From friends who open product, or just like on TCG Player, or from other stores who open a bunch of product. Um, just feel like it's better for me that way, especially because I've transitioned from Pokemon Online to Pokemon Live, like trading card game live, and I can build my own decks with resources and stuff like that. I don't need the code cards anymore, but that's a whole other thing. Which I'd like to make a video on that too. But yeah. Oh, universes, or UFS as it used to be, which is a fighting game basically. And I've played a little bit of it. I really liked how it played. I built a My Hero deck, the Uravity one with Ochaka. Oh my God, Uraka. What's her name? Oh God. Uh, Whatever. You know exactly who I'm talking about. Um, because that deck likes to multi attack basically, and the way that it reuses stuff is really cool. I like that a lot. Um, so I have that built. I like that. Like that game's pretty fun too. Um, haven't had a lot of time to play. It's very niche, unfortunately. But I think that game is pretty good. I'm looking at my desk, seeing if there's any other cards laying around. But no, I don't. Not really seeing anything. I've also realized that I've been rambling for 35 minutes, and that's way too long. So I gotta cut it here. I'm sorry. These are supposed to be 10-minute thoughts, but that's my history with games. I've played more. I know I've played more. I can't think of it. But yeah, I love card games. I'm always gonna play a card game. Right now, it happens to be mostly Pokemon. So that's just where I am. If you guys have any questions about my history, any decks or thoughts or opinions that you'd like me to hear in the comments, for sure. Let me know what decks you guys have played and whatever games you've also played. If you've played Light Seekers or any of the other more niche games that I've played, I want to know because I want to talk about it and I want to gush because I love those games. So uh, I haven't played a lot of digital games, but if you played a lot of digital games too, definitely throw those in there because I think that those would count as well. So yeah, without further ado, heading out. See you in the next video. Hopefully it's Friday, but oh, streaming. I'm gonna be streaming tonight when I upload this. Twitch.tv/banhammergames, which link in description as well. So now we're out.